You're listening to the Band Runners podcast with me, Simon Staples, and Rob Carlin.
Good evening, good day, good morning, good everything to everyone, and hello, Simon. Welcome home. How are you, mate?
Thank you, Rob. Yeah, I'm really well. I'm tanned. I'm peeling everywhere.
You're tan? No, you're not tanned.
Well, I wasn't in some of the photos you were posting up, but
oh,
no,
not where I've been looking.
I'm literally, I'm literally peeling all over the place.
Oh,
yeah, it's horrific.
They said on the radio, didn't they, that you're white but very muscular or something like that. Why was that your description? Is that?
I have no idea. I didn't know it was going to be on the radio, to be honest. So
I didn't.
I went
Wasn't
over.
You then?
No, I went over to Thailand. My uncle lives out there. I stayed with him. It was his daughter's 10th birthday that day. So I think every year he badgers the local radio and he says, "Look, it's my daughter's birthday. Can you mention it? Oh, and by the way, my nephew's over here, and he reckons he's going to run a marathon on a beach." So I'm guessing.
You did, didn't you?
I did.
Did?
I did.
Well done.
Completely insane, but I did.
Supposedly, that was something to do with me, but I didn't know about it till you announced it the next morning. So
I mean, somebody suggested I go run on the beach whilst I was there. I would not do that normally at all. But day one, I went, okay, let's give it a go, and it's bloody hard. And I was like, I like hard, and challenge. So then the next day, I think I did a half on it, and then that's when I said, right, Rob, we've got something happening here. And that,
and you started this whole raffle biz as well, didn't you?
Yeah.
Which we'll come on to.
Yeah.
But so Simon, you went on a holiday, right?
Yeah.
In Thailand.
Yeah.
You did a lot of running.
Yeah.
You
About
did a
50
fair
miles.
You did a fair bit of beering.
Yeah.
What else did you do? Aren't those things you do at home? What did you do that's actually holiday-esque?
Well, it was nice to see the extended family, I guess. Lots of Thai food, a couple of massages.
Okay. Cultural experience.
Yeah. Did some yoga. Never done that before. I was the worst in the class, and that was embarrassing.
But you're not competitive, so that wouldn't bother you.
Well, not in a yoga class. You can't be competitive about yoga, can you?
No, yoga's supposed to be very good for running, though, isn't it? Like I've been told by everyone, do yoga, something like that.
Yeah, I know. There were a lot of people saying you need to back your ideas up, mate, because you're not flexible at all. And
it's all right. You're not that bad.
No, seriously, Rob, I am. I was the worst in the room by a long way. Yeah, no, it was a nice little holiday. But I'm glad to be back, Rob. And now it feels like I've never been away.
We're glad to have you back.
So what have you been up to then? What have you been up to? I mean,
we all went out for a little dance in Storm Kira or whatever it was, didn't we?
That was insane.
Running the weekend.
That was insane.
It was mad. To be honest, the storm itself, it did wake me up a couple of times. But when I was actually out running in it, I've definitely been out in worse. The worst bit, I'd say, was the needly hail.
Yes.
That, it blows into your face, and it's like little nails smashing you in the eyes. It's brutal.
Yeah.
So kudos to everyone that actually stayed out there.
There were points on that run where I was getting blown backwards, even though I was trying to run forwards.
Yeah, well, there's nothing of you, is there? To me, like that, when the wind's on me, that's the only time I catch up with anyone. But everyone literally gets blown past me in the other direction.
And there was some chap as well who did a Phoenix record or something.
I think he did.
Did the most laps in. Oh, amazing.
Yeah, that was mad.
Yeah.
So, what a soldier. You didn't do bad yourself, did you?
Oh,
40 miles or something in 6 hours? That's impressive.
Yeah, 43, I think it was.
Something like that.
Yeah, something
and
like that.
after a bit of vino as well.
Oh, we had a really nice date, didn't we? Really nice.
We had a nice day. You're welcome for dinner, by the way.
Yeah, thanks. I forgot you paid.
I'm not surprised you forgot, but less so about that, the better.
Yeah.
So, our raffle, Simon.
Yeah.
The raffle you created. First things first, thanks to everyone who actually donated. The charity, King's College Hospital, that Mark Thornbury, one of our previous guests and good friends, put up. We raised almost £1,000 for them, which is blimmin' amazing. And thanks to everyone who donated prizes. Those are finding their ways out now. So how'd you come up with that idea?
Well, you spend 2 hours running up and down a beach, basically, mate, and just ideas whirring, and I thought, yeah, we could have some fun with this.
I just thought it was just the timing. I mean, everyone knows what raffle is, obviously, but it's just the timing was quite good, I think, around payday and all that.
Oh, was it? I didn't read that. I didn't read too much into it.
I shouldn't assume it was actually that well thought through.
No, of course not. Of course not.
Brilliant stuff. So happy to raise the money for Mr. Fauna's.
Yeah,
and
was good.
2 lucky ladies have a dinner date with us, don't they?
2 lucky ladies do.
Star prize.
Where are we going to go? Let's go. Can we go some? It's got to have cutlery.
If I have my way at KFC,
I know it would, but it's got to have
cutlery. Does plastic cutlery count?
No, come on. It's got to have silver cutlery.
Silver. Well, since you presumably had a butler growing up, Simon, when you asked him,
and napkins as well. I think we need napkins.
Napkins. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, but ones that aren't made out of paper, right?
Correct.
They're not fancy enough.
Yeah.
Correct.
And you're not allowed. You're not allowed a lemon wipe either.
Mate, I'm from Essex. I won't have a clue. Unless it's an Indian and it's got a lemon wipe, I don't know what it is. So you better pick.
No, I'm not picking. Let's let them...
Ladies' choice.
Yeah, exactly. But
so they can pick, but obviously you'll filter it. So...
yeah.
Okay. Apparently you're the classy one.
Well,
who knew?
No, I was going to say surely there's a budget. We can't just go, the Ritz, can we, Rob?
Well, you're paying this time. I paid for dinner last time.
Well, I'm paying for my date, not your side of the table. I'm paying for my date. I'm paying for yours.
All right. Yeah. We'll work it out later.
Right,
cool.
Look, that's because we've got a major guest on this evening, haven't we? So
we have. But just before we bring him out, I just wanted to talk about some other amazing stuff because other than yourself, Simon, there's been lots of bulldozing going on.
Oh yeah, sorry.
I think people inspired. By your exploits, your little mini midlife crisis. You're not midlife, are you? 1/3 life crisis, whatever it is. A lot of bulldozing going on. Bulldozing, for those that haven't tuned in before, is where you just do something flipping reckless.
It's not reckless. Kind of
no safety net. It is. It's just mad. It's unhinged. People who are normal, which is obviously not many people who run or listen to podcasts about running, particularly with us, just doing something a bit wild. So a few examples and honourable mentions. Got Mr. Gareth Allen, who booked an event without telling his wife.
Yeah.
Simon, what do you think about that?
I think that's not bulldozing at all. That's weak.
That's our Joker pick, then.
That is our Joker pick. We should say, Rob, we've picked sort of like a top 5 or 6, haven't we? That we really liked.
Yeah. So that was our booby prize, Gareth. We love you, but you did
crap.
the arc, but that is terrible. For someone that did the arc, you got to do better with your bulldozer. Right. Honourable mention to Lisa Garforth. She turned down a 3-week job for some money in the Caribbean and decided to do a double run round Samphire Hoe. What a choice!
Right. So for those who don't know what Samphire Hoe is, it's basically all the crap and rubbish that has been dumped after excavating to build the Channel Tunnel. And it's in Dover. And so you're telling me this lady refused a job in the Caribbean?
She could have gone to the Caribbean for 3 weeks and chose a weekend in Samphire Hoe
to run on wasteland.
Lisa, I just feel really sorry for you, but also sort of love how ridiculous that is.
That's good bold. That's good bold.
CJ Evans, this is a man after your heart, Simon. He listened to the podcast and thought, I'm going to go and do a half marathon tonight. Instead of that, he did a little 5K and then decided to stop off at the shop, buy a bottle of wine, and work his way through that instead. That counts as like the extra 10 miles, doesn't it?
Yeah, didn't he say that he did like 3 glasses by 6:30 or something?
Yeah.
Standard,
isn't it?
That's good.
Standard. So not a winner, but decent. Right, getting better. Yeah. This one I really like. So Matt Foley, flat on his face in a dark place. He said, screw that. 18 months later, he qualified for the UTMB, overcame depression, and he crossed the line last year, 2019, in 42 hours, and says that running his wife and children are his salvation. Now, there's a bit of everything in that one.
That's awesome. I mean, for the people that don't know, UTMB, Ultra Trail Mont Blanc, isn't it? What's the mileage?
Yeah, I think everyone knows what the UTMB is. 100 miles, isn't it?
No, it's more than... Maybe it is 100.
No, I'm pretty sure it's 100 miles. So.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's massive because it's at altitude as well, isn't it? So,
No, it's absolutely ridiculous, the amount of elevation gain in that. But, I wouldn't even know because I've obviously never entered it.
Yeah, like that one, sir. Well done.
Right. One more to mention. So this is our winner. This young lady turned 30, quit her job, booked a flight to Tenerife. She had nowhere to stay, no job, not a clue, no idea. Just 2 bags. She stayed 3 years, came back in debt, and with a dog.
So she
I'm not sure where the dog came from.
Back from Tenerife with a dog and debt.
Yeah, but but like just was there for 3 years and just did it all on a whim at 30. That's better than your midlife crisis by miles. So she's our winner, Miss Jem Porch.
Jem Porch, well done, love.
Well done, Jen. That is some serious dozing. Simon, we've got her up our game, especially me. I'm being way too sensible.
Well, you can do next year's raffle thing, can't you then?
Oh, my Lord. Will I live that long?
Sure,
my way.
Oh, right. Seriously. Can we get him out now?
Ah, right.
Can we get him out?
Yeah, I'm absolutely busting, and this episode is all about our guest, Centurion race director. Had a busy week recently at the ultra running show and completed the arc of attrition. I believe he came in the top 10.
He came sixth, Rob. Yeah. Do your research.
Elsonator. Elson.
Hey, here he is. Let's wheel him out.
Good evening, Elsonator. How are you?
Thanks very much. Yeah. Did you get that name off my Instagram? Because
is that what it is? Elsonator.
Yes, and I'd like to just add that it's not self-proclaimed nickname. That was given to me by someone else. Yeah.
So how was it when I was watching the London Marathon and just kept screaming it every time I saw you? Because you're the only person I knew that could recognise. So that must have been a nice day.
No, it's great. Yeah, appreciate it. Any support's good support. Yeah.
Any support, even from the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was very drunk in my defence. Cool. Right, well, we've got you here, James. Thanks for making the time. I know you're a very busy man. You've had a very busy couple of weeks, haven't you? I mean, we're not here to talk about your racing, but you did come in, was it top 10 of the Arc of Attrition last week?
Sixth, yeah.
Yep. That's good knowledge. Yeah.
Good knowledge. There you go, yeah.
Simon is a proper stalker. Yeah. Don't encourage it.
Right, okay. Yeah, no, it was a good weekend. It's a great race they organised down there, Mud Crew, and we were a little bit lucky, I think, with the weather, but underfoot it was awful. It was really boggy and muddy. But yeah, I made it round just underneath 24 hours, which was kind of the aim. And because
that's one of the hard hundreds, isn't it, in this country?
Yes. I've been thinking about this because a lot of people ask me after the fact, but it is hard. Don't get me wrong. I don't think it's up there in the top echelon of the hardest races out there. But in terms of UK hundreds, I guess less than half the field finished. Again, I don't think they've ever had more than a 50% finish rate. But I think that's mainly because 36 hours is actually quite a tight cut-off for the. You consider the winning time is usually 21, 22 hours.
Wow. Okay.
36 is not that generous. We roughly work on the principle at Centurion of double the winning time for the cut-off. That seems to be the general.
Thank you very much.
Hundreds. That hundreds are organised to give, a good spread of finishing times, but make it still an achievement of finishing in one go without really allowing people to sleep. That's the critical factor.
That's well navigated. You've managed to describe the stretch of the cutoff without insulting me, who lives at the stretch of the cutoff.
That cutoff, though. That is we call it the golden hour, right? And that is, that last hour of the race is magic. It is such just magic. Just better than any other part of the race, in all honesty.
I'm looking forward to giving you many more golden hours this year.
I don't want to see any of them.
Please do. Yeah.
Excellent.
See, James,
all right, we're here. Go on.
Yeah. So we know you're an accomplished runner and everything, but what in the world made you want to become a race director and see the other side of it?
Well, I was getting into running 100 milers back in early 2009, and at the time here in the UK we had literally just a handful of options. Most of them involve navigation, which has always been kind of at the root of UK ultra running. And whilst I didn't want to sort of completely change the ethos of sport here, I found myself going to the States to run marked and fully supported races that didn't involve hours of recce's, and at the time I wasn't so great at navigation, so it was 100 miles was far enough without the daunting prospect of having to use a map and compass as well. We had Lakeland 100 had just started, had about 40 people the first year. Caesar's Camp was going, but that was a pretty difficult race actually. It was 10 mile loops. And then, an LDWA event where you're reading a route description, and then a couple of races that were longer than that, like the Grand Union. So I went to the States twice in 2009. I ran Rocky Raccoon and Old Dominion, and that was my qualifying for Badwater in 2010.
Yeah.
And at this point, I was coming home with all kinds of ideas, thinking, right, we don't have any of these races in the UK. There's definitely a scene, more of a scene, certainly than there was in 2005, 2006 when I started running ultras. And I thought, it was right to put one on. So we tried in 2011. The Caesars Camp race director, Henk, who does, he wound that race up actually a couple of years later, but he was the one that said to me, look, the North Downs Way is a great opportunity. Yes. Let's have a look at it. He helped me to stage that first race, and it was popular, We did all right. We marked the course. It wasn't flawless, but it was all right. We put on supported checkpoints, gave people a buckle at the end, and people seemed to really love it. So almost immediately after, I'd already had the sort of idea of the Thames Path 100. I launched that, and we sold the race out in not much time at all.
Awesome.
And I was just like, right, here we go.
So what came after that? What came after Thames Path?
Well, at that point, I was on the Trail Running Association committee and working alongside a lady called Jen Jackson, who'd reinvigorated the old South Downs Way 80 into a South Downs Way 100, which actually went from Eastbourne to Winchester at the time. Yeah. She did it for a couple of years, and it was just so much work. She didn't have the time to continue on, and she wanted to give the race up. So I said, so we'd take it on. I would want to reverse the route, which she seemed all right with. So that was the third event. And at this point, I was going across to the US to run the US Grand Slam of Hundreds, which was 400-mile races in 3 months. And I thought, we've got a nice spread across the year. We've got an opportunity for a fourth one, and we could have our own sort of UK slam. So that was how I came up with the Winter 100, which I have to say, in terms of a route, in terms of practicality late in the year, and as a first 100-miler for people, has kind of been a really, really great race.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's so different from the others too, James. And the thing is, actually, Centurion's become a bit of a household name now. Everyone, I don't know, I'm sure you didn't put it out there, but everyone calls it the Rolls Royce of ultras, basically, within the UK. And I know you sort of took a lot of what you loved about the ones you've done as a runner, which is always a great sort of recipe for an RD to take, I think, from the ones we've done. But it's just having at least attempted most of the hundreds and knowing about what's now the autumn 100s. They're all like slightly different flavours, aren't they? But they're all kind of like cool in their own right. Not really landing that very well, but you know what I mean? It's something really different feeling about the North and South Downs Way, which you wouldn't realise till you've been on them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Was that by design or was that an accident? You can be honest with us.
No, it was by accident because I didn't have 4 in mind when I started. I didn't have any other one in mind when I started any other of the others, if that made sense. The North Downs came first. It was just going to be a one-off. And then the Thames Path was... I just thought at the time, I was obsessed not just with running 100, but running 100 as fast as I could. So I was looking for a trail race that was similar to Rocky Raccoon, which is... it's 20-mile loops out in the state park in Texas. It's a slightly obscure race, but I love that event because it was fast. It was a real runner's trail 100. And the thing with hundreds are that they were tending to go in the direction of not only are we going to make this 100 miles, we're going to throw in as much climbing as possible. It's in the mountains. It's, an extreme time of year. And the Thames Path to me was an opportunity to give people an entry level 100. You've removed navigation, you've removed elevation change. However, ironically, it's ended up being one of the more difficult ones to complete on the whole because it's so flat.
Yeah. So people just boat out.
Thanks for that.
Yeah. So people often still go for that as a first 100, but the dropout rate is actually substantially higher than the South Downs Way because it is relentlessly flat and people tend not to train on pan flat ground.
I live on the pan flat, but having attempted it back in 2017, as well as the head not really being there, I think I just didn't have a plan for it. Mm-hmm. And I just kind of tried to just jog at it. And then there was no sort of, altering resistance. There's no terrain changes other than the occasional bridge. Yeah. And it's a bit like, Oh, Christ. I've literally got to learn to Jeff.
Can we go into detail? We're probably chopping about a bit, but the Thames Path 100. So this is in 12 weeks' time, I think now.
Mm-hmm.
So me and Rob are doing it. Tips, James? Advice?
That's why you're here.
What the hell are we doing?
Is put your weekly long run on the flat. I mean, I know you guys are slightly different kettle of fish because you've got entries into the others as well. So you've obviously got to factor in then the elevation change that comes at the South and the North Downs. But you really want to be training specifically towards running so far on flat ground. There's also a lot of pavement early on in that race.
Yeah.
And people combine being tapered, going too quickly at the start with not having trained exclusively on flat ground. So often their quads and hamstrings take more of a pounding than they're used to in training. Then they get behind on nutrition because they're running too fast, they get hot, and it's sort of a spiral of circumstances that mean that by the time they reach, Henley or even just after Reading,
Like
the second half
around
of
the
the
50
route.
mile.
That's halfway. That's halfway in 60 miles, isn't it?
Yes,
so,
51 and 58. Yeah, so they just end up walking, death marching in a lot of cases the remainder of the route. The trick is really, it can also be quite hot. The last several years we've had, 20 plus degrees. One year was itching up on 30 degrees. Yet the year before that, it was literally freezing at night down by the river with a kind of foggy mist hanging over. So you can get, we say in the info pack, it could be -5 or 30, and that's not an exaggeration. The first weekend in May, who the hell knows what we're going to get? So
it's mad though,
for all of that, really.
The difference, and I've heard so many personal accounts of I just was never expecting it to get that cold at night, and people just don't have the stuff in their drop bag. So as if I know, because I didn't even make it that far, but I just tell everyone have have something at halfway for warmth if you need it.
Yeah,
Gets
absolutely.
Arctic.
Yeah, it does. And, we have a mandatory kit list that includes a base layer and a jacket. And, people say to us at the start, it's going to be 30 degrees. We really need this stuff. Well, when it's 3 degrees at 3 a.m. the following morning and you're walking by the river, you can get extremely cold. So I would say pace it well from the start. Think about incorporating walking into your long runs on the flat, on a regular basis. I mean, think about having a plan for that. Really.
For average Joe blogs, James, we're not elite or anything like that. Mileage, training plans. I mean, what do you think is reasonable, or what could people get away with?
With 12 weeks to go, bearing in mind, because people will be listening to this and thinking, oh, crap, have I done enough? So what would you say to them?
Yeah, I mean, 12 weeks to go, really, what you do for the next 10 weeks is the most important period of training for sure. And actually, anything longer than 12, 14 weeks in one consistent training block is probably too long to sustain anyway if you get it right. So you're absolutely bang on the timing in terms of coming in and thinking about, right, what's the meat of my training going to be? I would say, the old adages, consistency and specificity for sure are the most important things. I tend not to give people mileage. I tend to talk in hours terms and consistency in terms of how often they run. If you want to finish 100 miles and it not be excruciatingly painful, I think you really need to be looking at running 8 to 10 hours a week as a minimum, and you need to be doing 5 or 6 days a week of running. I think that'll please the wives, won't it? Well,
that's all right. Actually, I was expecting you to be way harder taskmaster, James.
Oh no. I'm an experiment of one, sure, myself, but we've worked with hundreds of athletes towards finishing 100-milers, and we've seen it all from people who've come in off doing nothing but bike training to people who run 200 miles a week, week in, week out.
James, when you say people that have just done bike training, these are people that have just been exclusively on a bike and then just land on their feet and run 100 miles, is it? Or
yes, usually because they're injured, though. I caveat that there's nothing prescriptive for that. It's all, if you want to run a long race, you need to do plenty of running and training. Unfortunately, otherwise it's going to hurt. the idea is that you can't, with the 28-hour cut-off at the Thames Path, as long as you are motivated and you really, really want to get to that finish line, even if your training hasn't gone that well, you're still able to finish. And I think far too many people try to go too long on their weekly long run. What happens is they're doing 20, 25, 30 miles once a week and limping through the rest of the week, maybe only running a few times and not getting anything substantial in. You'd be better off running 7 miles every day than running 28 miles on a Saturday.
That's interesting, because one of the things that, like, obviously you know a lot about this, one of the things that I've read or spoken to people so many times is, or even seen people post online, is get back-to-back long runs in. That's the biggest thing. I think it is, from my own experience, learning to run when you are absolutely shagged tired is so important because of the way you can feel at 100. But good point on spacing it out and not being broken when you're actually supposed to be training.
Yeah, I would say you put a lot of people as well thinking their long run needs to be 40 miles. If your long run is 20, 22, 24 miles and you do a 20 and a 15 back-to-back on the weekend, that is a really substantial back-to-back. This isn't a case of you needing to go out and do 8 hours followed by 6 hours. It's a case. I mean, if
to cover those distances for me, James, yes, it is.
Yeah. I mean, you just got to be sensible with it. If you're broken for the entire of the next week because your back to back was that difficult, that hard, that damaging, then you got to cut it back. And each week builds on the week before, so it's fine to write a plan down, but don't write more than 2 or 3 weeks at a time, because that 2 or 3 weeks is likely to be completely different to what you're hoping.
Yeah, I've experienced that myself. Yeah.
And about the actually doing it, James. So something like in terms of being ready for it, you say like work, you're walking in, and I always tell people the story of when I was doing my first 100, which was your North Downs 100.
Yeah,
I know Simon doesn't like me talking about it.
Yeah. Sick of hearing about it all the time.
No, but like I remember a guy who I think said he'd run it before came by, and the thing to say actually is everyone's not as intimidating as you might expect. I know, they're all very talkative community. It's brilliant. The marshals are, Centurion Army, sorry, second to none. But some guy just came past me, as most people probably did that day, and said, because I said, I feel a bit rubbish. I don't feel like I should be walking. It was about 5 miles in. He said, if you're not walking now, mate, you won't be standing at the end. So, and at the time I was like, wow, that's probably not that profound, but it's stuck with me. And so something, I think you've said it in some of your briefings before, you can actually, or on your own show, you can walk 100 miles within 28 hours, can't you? And some people have actually done that for your races. I mean, I wouldn't want to, but you can.
I think we haven't touched upon this point yet, but the other way people manage to elude cut-offs is wasting time in checkpoints. If you've got 13 or 14 checkpoints, and the first couple you only stop for a couple of minutes, but as you get deeper into the race, you're spending even 10 or 15 minutes at each one. That can easily be 2 to 3 hours of dead time. You're not getting any nearer the finish line while you do those things. You really need to think about whether that stop is going to assist you in any way. If you come to Streatley at mile 70 on the Thames Path 100, you will see a vast number of people come in, take packs off, take shoes off, change shoes in drop bags. They really just need to get on with it. And quite frankly, if they're just a little more efficient with their checkpoints, they'd find that they have plenty of time left to walk out at the end. You're absolutely right. We have Sandra Brown, who's a vet 70 woman, who will walk, the Autumn 100 in 25 hours. She doesn't stop. She just keeps going. She has occasional cup of tea.
I think I've raced with Sandra, and she's a power walker. She's not a walker, is she? Yeah.
25 hours, 100 miles. Yeah,
James,
walking.
I've heard a number of people doing 100 milers and stuff, like trying to sleep deprive themselves and just to experience that side of things.
Okay.
Would you recommend doing that?
That's an absolutely terrible idea.
Yeah,
I mean, literally could not recommend that less. I just think that if you want to train efficiently, recovery is the main priority. So again, your training's all well and good, the running's all well and good, but it's the recovery that's actually making you fitter and arming you with the skill set to get to the finish line. If you start messing around with sleep deprivation, you're just delaying any recovery time by exponential degrees. In actual fact, in the race, the sleep deprivation doesn't really need to be a factor. With your motivation to get on and just finish, you should be quite excited getting into the night. And if you do start to feel a bit what I call wandery and like you need a sleep, just get a bit of Pro Plus down you. The Pro Plus is 20 milligrams of caffeine. That's about a quarter of a cup of coffee. If you strategically drop the occasional Pro Plus through the really small hours of the morning, you'll be just fine. Just to say, medically speaking, I'm not advocating the heavy use of Pro Plus during races, but if it gets to that point, it's only a very small number of hours where sleep deprivation is an issue, and in no way should it be the deciding factor in you finishing or not. I would absolutely not recommend trying to factor in some kind of sleep unless you literally feel like you can't move forward safely without it.
Yeah, I definitely couldn't. I have to be excited because I can't stop at the aid station. I don't have time.
Yeah,
send my running butler in to get me some water and just keep marching. Well, exactly right. I don't even remember a checkpoint at Lenham that I actually marshalled, which is 90 miles into one of your races, because I think I was in a daze and I just told my pacer, or I just told the guy, handed him my water bottles and walked past it. The thing is, the opposite of the sleep deprivation point, a lot of people swear by, I stopped drinking coffee for a month before.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you think that is a thing? And the effects of it? Because then during the race, when you have that Pro Plus or that cup of coffee, is it, do you think it's a placebo effect?
Yeah, I personally, some of the best runners in the UK, subscribe heavily to that belief, and it's worked very well for them. Jez Bragg is a prime example, one of the best runners we've ever produced. I know he spoke extensively in the past about coming off caffeine the week before races, and then
just a week. I don't even know that would do anything chemical.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I drink quite a lot of coffee, probably 4 or 5 cups a day, and I don't change that coming to a race. I'm a real believer that whatever you do generally day to day, you need to keep doing right up until race day, because so many people try and change something that's been, a regular part of their day-to-day work-life balance in the 3 or 4 days before the race, thinking it's going to give them a marginal gain, and it throws their body out of whack. Either they don't sleep right because, something's out of balance, or they carb load and then they, get this huge water retention issue. Just keep doing what you normally do. Try and sleep and eat well, but just concentrate on living a normal sort of work-life balance, and then come into the race.
Because there's so many normal people turn up to do races, aren't there? Absolutely swimming in them.
Flip side, James. So obviously you're allowed crew and pacers for your hundreds.
Yes.
From the 50-mile mark, most of the time, isn't it? Bar the autumn 100. If there are any of those sort of types listening to this, what do you recommend for them? I mean, I'm planning on using them.
Yep.
Would you advise runners to use them or not use them? Or, I mean, it's personal preference, for obviously at the end of the day, isn't it? But
it is. I would say if you have a crew, I've seen lots of people invite wives, girlfriends, husbands, boyfriends along, or even just other family members or close friends, and have an issue where they're actually more worried about their crew than they are about themselves. They've said, I need you to meet me on the outskirts of Abingdon at 4 a.m. and it's, a wife on her own in a car, or a husband who's not great with the sat-nav and, ends up in the back of Beyond. They're not there, and they've leaned really heavily on the fact that person's going to be there. Yep. When you've got a checkpoint every 6 or 7 miles, it just isn't necessary. That being said, if they do say the weather's really bad and you've got kind of exponential changes of clothing available to you, then that's a real positive for sure. You have to carry a little bit less if you've got a crew, but be super efficient if you've got a crew. Don't come in and use it as an excuse to sit down, because if you lean on them and the checkpoints, you're going to just drop so much time for not moving. Pacers, I think, is brilliant to have company. I think they help you in terms of motivation, just in terms of company, again, it has to be the right person. You shouldn't just get any old Joe Bloggs off the street to pace you. They have to know what motivates you.
Yes.
Some people really love the solitude, and I'm definitely one of those, but I've also used pacers, and used is the operative word, used pacers in events that have really enjoyed that part of it too.
Rob calls them, what do you call them, Rob? Gate wankers or something?
Oh, yeah, a lot of people call them that, or running butlers. But
well, I tell you what, on the South Downs Way, where there's 100+ gates and styles, if your pacer is getting even 24 gates for you in the second half of the race, you don't have to stop that sort of trotting momentum down a hill. Yeah, it was a real saver. It does really save.
Yeah, so I think I want them purely for the company.
Yeah. I think that makes sense. Yeah.
You know what was strange, when I had a pacer on the 100, and it was the first guy pacing me out of a knockout from 50. So I had two brilliant mates who were going to pace me, both much quicker runners than me, and obviously they weren't going to do a lot of running. They were going to, I don't know, enjoy themselves and my brilliant company when I was furious and tired. But the first guy, it sort of worked in its own way, but we got lost. He also told me he was tired after 17 miles in from him because he'd done Box Hill repeats that day. And we're going through the woods. And I said, why are you telling me you're tired, you plum? And he said, well, I was doing Box Hill repeats all day because I didn't expect you to get this far, did I? I was like, and he didn't know the route. He didn't have batteries for his head torch. So the other crew had to come get him. So they missed me at a stop. And in the end, there was a lady actually in a bad way. And I actually just designated him. I said, right, go and stop with her. Make sure she's okay. And I just pelted it off as fast as I could.
Well, thank you from my perspective. But yeah, you've just emphasised why a crew and pacer system can actually be a drain on you as a runner. A lot of people, especially the more experienced runners, just prefer to just be looking after themselves. I know a lot of runners at the Arc this year, which is 100 miles. They only have 4 checkpoints, so there's a lot of carrying your own stuff around. It opted to go self-supported because of the stress they had last year of crews just trying to get into these little coves and bays, struggling with bad weather, struggling to find the trail, dangerous driving conditions. They just didn't want the stress this year and went for it by themselves and had better races. So there's a balance for sure.
I should say, actually, that guy did actually spur me on because I love the fact that my favourite thing is people telling me I can't do stuff. So that was golden, and I just got rid of him. And had a guy who actually knew the North Downs Way lead the rest of the way. But with crew, I totally get the point around it. My mum and stepdad have helped me loads, and my little brother and older brother want to volunteer to pace me. But there is a little stress in your head that feels like, and also it's a bit of a crutch. Yeah. And this year I've decided Thames Path, I want to go it on my own because personal choice, maybe a pacer if someone wants to volunteer, but definitely I don't want to be thinking about worrying about what someone else is. It's nice to have the support there, and I love it really, but I sort of just want the solitude because I'm fine with that. So I get your point that
there's definitely positives and negatives to both. But I would say, just if you do have a pacer and crew, just make sure you plan it well. Don't give them all the information. There's loads of information on our website about where to meet, what the timings are likely to be. Just give them that stuff, because far too many of them come up to us at registration and go, "Do you have a map?" And I'm like, this is not going to go well for you.
They get that look.
We do. It's on the website, and if your runner hasn't shown you the website, we've probably got a bit of an issue.
Oh dear. I went properly mad, and because it was a big deal, I printed them all a little contract. It's like, I'm only allowed to drop out for these reasons. You do this. You will be here. That. I hope I will be here at this time. Yeah. No, I went properly weird and intense about it, but I suppose.
Yeah, but look what happened. Look at the outcome. You ran. You weren't even edging the cut-offs. You were well inside. You ran the race of your dreams and finished, with your arms aloft, happy as anything. And you deserved it. You planned it, and you wanted it the whole way. And they're the main, component factors for sure. Can't overstate that motivation enough. And I say this all the time to second-time 100-milers. You need to want it just as much as that first time, because otherwise
have a problem here.
It's 50, 60, you get there and you think, you know what, I finished this before, and I've got nothing left to prove at this stage. This is hard and miserable, and fuck this.
Yeah. And I don't want to keep making about my experiences, but I felt so bad phoning you when I was at where was it, Raysbury, and I was pulling out of the TP 100 in 2017 because actually I'd sort of realised, James, after a little fall and a like hurty knee, and I didn't want to sort of limp to Henley, which I could have made because I was ahead of the time, and I just felt a bit blown up, and I wasn't willing to do it because when I look back, I didn't have a reason to actually be doing it. I don't know why I was there, and that was such an embarrassing sort of phone call to have with you.
But the Thames Path will have 60 or 65 Grand Slammers. And I don't mean this to put the shits up you two, but we have 60, 65 Grand Slammers signed up, and only 40 will still be in it at the end of that race, and they'll just withdraw from the rest of the series.
So you're saying 25 of the 65
at least
will not be in the Grand Slam still.
They get 50 miles into Thames Path. I think not only do I not want to do this 3 more times this year, I do not have this fight in me today. And the perspective changes, and 2 days later they're absolutely kicking themselves because for the most part they're not actually injured. It just got miserable, and they realised that it wasn't going to be quite what they planned. Of course, the achievement of finishing, you get such a high after a race. You immediately want to go and find another 100, but you've got to make sure then that you have a good motivation. The Slam is great motivation, but it is one race. You've got to look at them as part of a journey and accept that your recovery after each is just as important as anything you do. And not think about the next race when you're in the middle of the first one. Just think about the next checkpoint, I
mean, I was going to say with the Slam, James, I mean, I tell people about it, I'm doing this year, and they think I'm absolutely nuts. And we've got a few mates who are trying even more than 400 milers in a year and stuff. And I think we had a chat in Wendover about this. Just the quantity of this. I mean, I remember us talking. You're saying, look, the Slam 400s it's a mental challenge to do. I mean, I'm guessing I just want to pick your brains about all of it, really. Like how. I mean, you've sort of said it already, but I mean, how the blimmin' heck do we do this?
You've got to accept that the training you do now for the Thames Path is almost all the training you're doing for this year, because if you're sensible, you'll and I'll come back to what's possible against what I think is sensible after this. But if you race 100-miler, you shouldn't run for a week or two afterwards. Even if you feel fine and it's like, oh, my legs stop hurting, I've got no blisters, there's nothing wrong with me. You've got a deeper fatigue, that is in there. Your adrenal system needs to recover. You can't just keep hammering it over and over again. So, training that second week, sure, get out for a few easy runs, a few easy swims, whatever. Don't try and train productively immediately after having run 100 miles. That is not something that's going to work. So give yourself 2 or 3 weeks, at which point you're practically tapering for the South Downs Way 100.
And because they're really close together, aren't they? Was it 5 weeks or something?
5 weeks. Yeah. So that's fine. You're going from one to the other. In the States, where the Slam is even more compacted than R4, they'll tell you the same thing. The experienced guys say all the same thing. The training for 100 miles is done during the previous 100-miler. The rest of the time, you're sitting on the couch. And that you've got to make your peace with that. The one period of time where you can really get some productive training done is for a few weeks or even a month between the North Downs Way and the Autumn 100. The rest of the time, you've got to focus on rest and recovery more than running. If you start whacking in additional marathons, 100s, 50s, whatever it is, it's completely possible to do it all. But in 10 years' time, if I look back 10 years to the guys that were doing that much, you do not see many of them around now. It just takes a toll on your body that you just can't you can't account for. It's not something that you wake up and think, God, this really knackered me out. It's this gradual, decline. This niggles and injuries and illnesses and general fatigue become greater and greater over time. You've got to let your body recover. It's very different if you're doing something like, I know you boys stuff doing the Phoenix races and you do a lot of regular marathons and you're taking it super easy and you're having a sociable day out and you're enjoying just a 5, 6, 7 hour run.
Not always, but yeah.
That's fine. That's totally different. You're not taxing your system in the same way as you are.
That's what I was going to say, James.
Running a hard race or running a very long race.
For you to tell somebody like me,
so that's a little easier to build into the program. But I would say 400s is enough. Don't try to put in more than that. Look at it as one journey, and don't overstress yourself.
But for you to tell somebody,
fair shout. I was going to say, James, like just trying to like bring it over from the guys to do some of the lapped events, James, and stuff like that, like the SVNs, the Phoenix of this world. Yeah. I've many times actually tried, when you get social and talking to some of the runners, I've tried to kind of bring them over the divide, as it were, because I did quite early on, I suppose, in my running journey. It sounds a bit wanky, but like I stepped out of it just because a mate literally mentioned he signed up to a 100-mile race. I thought, I want to do that. It was after my dad had passed away. I was like, I want to do something mad. I want to live like a madman. I want to do something seriously testing me, because I haven't tested myself for a while. I try and talk people over, and just the most common thing I hear from people who are far quicker, better runners than me, they're worried about cut-offs, they're worried about the difficulty or the perceived difficulty of some of your races. And I try and convince them not to, but it's just, I don't know what it is. And I think, what would you say if you're sort of trying to, I guess, get people to give it a go? Because if I can't, as a potato, convince them to come and do it, what are you going to say?
It's funny you raised this, because I had this conversation with Travis Wilcox, who obviously runs the SVN events with Rachel. Down in November, I did 5 or 6 SVN and running miles events through October, November. I saw Simon at a number of them, actually, just prepping for
what a surprise.
Prepping for a 24-hour race in December. And Travis and I used to race all over the world. I've raced with him in the States many times, and he was one of the original kind of pioneers of doing the slam stuff with us. And he's really surprised that more people don't step up from SVN into doing our hundreds. But I think there is still this intimidation factor. I think in the SVN events, I see a lot of people not really eating, drinking, pacing particularly sensibly. If I the last one I did was down, I can't remember what seafront it was, but
Samphire Ho, if it was the one where we were running around the wasteland, James.
It wasn't that one. It was on a road, and I dropped down to the beachfront and then came up and ran a couple of out and backs, and I can't remember where it was.
Sounds like Dymchurch or something like that, but.
Well, anyway, I was trying to run a steady pace throughout, and I was absolutely nowhere early on. Seemed to be eating regularly. I don't think I see anybody really taking calories on in those events, and they run hard and fade a bit, and then sort of just get themselves to the end. And I think the last even 10k of running in that fashion can be pretty horrendous, because you're just in calorie deficit and you feel crap, and you're thinking, how am I going to do this for another 75 miles? But the step up from there is really just to slow it down and make it a journey, and be excited about that journey. Know that you're going to be looked after just as well as you are at SVN, but in a completely different environment. And then just to eat and drink for the distance they're going.
Those aid stations are exceptional. It is the walking picnic. Sort of slightly jogging picnic.
I mean, my problem that I had with my first 100 is that I was feeling strong, feeling good, and just went, do you know what? I'm going to be done by 2 a.m. I'll be home at 4. And I just kept, I just kept being a wally and kept ploughing on and blew up.
Right.
Took 40 minutes out, and then managed to get round, like you say. Just stupidity, I guess. But you do
rookie error, Simon.
Yeah, exactly. You have to rein it in, don't you?
I almost missed getting a PB there because I had to give you a talking to.
I think you've got what people are capable of in hundreds against what they think they're capable of are vastly different things. Yeah. If I give you an example, the Thames Path 100, 10-minute miling is 16 hours 40, right? Jeez. For 100 miles. 10-minute miling. Man. Now, if I'm looking at a sub 3 hour marathoner, that is the absolute bare minimum they're physically capable of running on the Thames Path. Yet I meet plenty of sub 3 hour marathoners who can't achieve sub 24 at 100 miles. And it's because they're not training the right way, like consistently and specifically for the race. They're coming in with a bad nutrition plan, or one that they're just new to and haven't refined yet. They come in and run too fast at the start and end up walking the vast majority. They spend too long at checkpoints. These days I'm not training anywhere near as well as I used to, but I still do okay in hundreds, because my experience, my experience is I know how to eat and drink. I know how to pace. I know how shit I'm going to feel at some point. I know I'm okay to walk if I need to. And the stress level is vastly reduced by being just a bit more knowledgeable on those things. It's not a distance you can come in to nail, walk away thinking this is the best thing ever and just, do every other month. This is something that you've got to prepare for and keep working at if you want to be successful. It is arduous, it is difficult, but ultimately the satisfaction I feel from finishing 100 is at least as great as anything else, any other achievement I've had in running.
It's massive.
For sure. So I know it's just a number, but it's a bloody big number. And I do honestly think, I know there's a proliferation of 150, 200 mile plus races out there now. That's fine. But when you go beyond this stage, it's hard not to start factoring in sleeping or extended stops or, other things that just take it away from being a pure running race. And to me, 100 is still a pure running race in that it's a non-stop event. You can sleep. A 15-hour 100-miler could have a full night's sleep and carry on, but that's not what it's about. It's a running event, and it's over and done in not much more than a day. So there's a magic to it, I think.
I mean, I think it's a perfect number, really. Just having done it, I never expected I would have wanted to, but now I sort of want nothing more than to feel fit and good enough to go and smash another 100-miler or finish one. Smash it's probably a bit much. It's all I think about. I'm absolutely obsessed by it. Absolutely obsessed.
How many have you done, Rob? You've finished
just two. North Downs 100 and the Samphire 100 with SVN. You'd have been impressed with the eating thing. It sounds like I'm abusing myself. I often say to people, it's sort of slightly meant as a joke. If there's anything I'm good at, it's moving while eating. So that is like a proper skill.
That is a major skill set.
Being able to shovel a rice pudding down, going up, a steep hill, that is fundamental.
Yeah, and if you haven't trained your stuff, we encourage our coach runners to train, to eat in training like they will in the race. So many people get on the start line. They either haven't packed as much nutrition and water in their race vest as they actually need to carry, so all of a sudden their bag feels heavy, or they actually haven't used it in training. So 3 hours in, whatever basic nutrition plan they had is out the window. They're leaning on the checkpoint tables and they're just not getting enough, So practice it in training. Do your 4 hour long run and eat and drink and carry what you will in the race. It's just no better preparation than that.
No, but you have a lot on offer, and there's stuff for vegans too. Having marshalled a couple of times at Centurion events. I think I tried to make you a peanut butter sandwich. You weren't hungry. That's not a problem.
One time, thank you.
You looked knackered. I thought, do you want some peanut butter sandwiches?
Yeah.
No thanks.
We do try to cater for everybody.
So much.
I actually don't think it's difficult, and I think a lot of organisers shoot themselves in the foot. It isn't actually that expensive to cater for everyone and cater it well. You just need to, work out. The idea is, if someone comes into a checkpoint, there's something that they'll be able to eat, whether they want, whether it's what they want or what they need. There's something for everybody, and try to, as far as possible, without incurring massive waste, which is a problem, have the same spread for the first runner as the last runner. Yeah. If you abide by those pretty simple principles, they're not that expensive to execute, actually, and it means a great deal to runners and really substantially helps them get to the finish. I do get the car boot races that say it's really extreme, I'm only going to give you water, and that's a different type of challenge, and that is not what we're trying to put on. Something for everybody, I suppose.
With the tailwind as well, you're giving everyone the tools they need to get round, right? So either your tailwind or, like literally from cheese sandwich to cherry tomato, there's something there. We even had pineapple, I think, which was luxurious at the.
Yes, and we do try to encourage the volunteers, in the aid station briefings, as you'll have received, having been a volunteer, we say, if you want to bake something or make something, we will pay for it. Just, it gives that variety. Because if I give you a shopping list that's pretty much the same for every checkpoint, there's little variety. There's a lot of variety, but at some point you've tried everything. If the volunteers then suddenly produce gluten-free lemon drizzle cake that, at mile 80, it could be the difference between you having a shitty finish and a good one. And it's those little touches that mean so much, and that is entirely down to volunteers.
The amount of time I've had food envy of people that have got past where I jibbed out, been furious. It's like, what, they had jelly and ice cream at 50 miles?
Yeah.
I missed that. Because, no, seriously, it features in people's race reports. They're like, oh, did you have that gluten-free, like you say, lemon drizzle cake? Like, I missed it. What? It's a big deal. It's just that interesting thing, that exciting factor, because sometimes it's not always exciting to be on your feet for 20 plus hours, is it?
No, it's not. And a lot of that is driven from, Western States is indelibly imprinted on my mind as coming into checkpoints, and they will grill you or cook you or provide you with pretty much anything you ask for, and there are 25 checkpoints. It's just the next level, and when you've seen that and you've had the benefit of that, you want to try and provide that to the other runners. There are some old school UKRDs that think we just go totally over the top, we mollycoddle people, and that's actually not helpful because they lean on it too heavily. That is true in that they then go to other events and think, oh well, I'm not, I didn't get what I wanted,
Where are the
wraps?
We're
going to have this. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure we're not the best in terms of food. I'm sure other people have caught up and probably even surpassed what we're delivering. But we're happy with the variety and the quantity we put out there as being enough to get you to the finish. Ultimately, it's just about some calories, some carbs that get you to the finish. But like I say, the food and drink thing, we get applauded for it a lot. It's not actually that much work or expense. It's just a bit of thought and a bit of expertise. Yeah.
James, in your opinion, then, with the slam, what are the hardest ones?
The Thames Path takes the most people out. If you get through the Thames Path, the South Downs Way is usually okay. The South Downs Way, whilst there's a lot of elevation change, it's a stunning route. It's very, very runnable. You usually get a tailwind. It's a very long day, so you don't have too much darkness to contend with. And generally, people love the route. It is hard going underfoot, but it is a beautiful route. The North Downs Way then knocks people out because, as Rob can attest to, it's
I hate that route. Yeah, it's
a very difficult race actually. It's because the descents and ascents are steep and short. Then you don't get so much smooth running in. It tends to be hotter and more humid in August, and it's long. It's at least 3 miles long. So you've got to factor in that the North Downs Way is going to take an hour, hour and a half, at least longer than any of the other events.
James, surely it's 100 miles exactly, though.
It's 100.00 miles. Yeah.
The thing is, though, to say about it, I actually genuinely, thoroughly, I think because it was such a new thing, I thoroughly enjoyed that whole route. And I couldn't understand why people...
What, the North Downs Way, Rob?
Yeah,
mate,
fancy that. No, but I couldn't understand why people were telling me. And then, I don't know for what bizarre reason, my own crew, my mum started telling me, people are saying this is a really hard one. And like, why has he done this? And why would he pick this as his first? And I was like blasé, just eating my cheese sandwiches, another brilliant food at Centurion. And don't like cheese usually. And then came Detling, and that would probably be the bit people most talk about. I just remember some, guys, it's a trail. And I can say this now with hindsight, but at the time I was, dizzy. I was probably crying, bleeding out my hands because you don't know where to put your hands and stuff, and you're sort of clawing your way up some steps because by that point you want to use your arms as much as possible. But then you don't realise that it's like enwrapped with these massive thorns. It's like, right, okay, well now I've got tetanus or something, but we'll deal with that when I finish. But it's like it's just a brutalisation. But then I don't know, the sun comes up if you're where I was, and you get past that, and then you're like, you've survived it, like a sort of battle.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, you guys epitomise kind of people's perspectives on that route, and it's the same with the South Downs. People tend to either love it or they hate it. There's not many that are ambiguous about both. I think the North Downs Way is incredibly beautiful in places and it's incredibly rough in others. You know, the Medway crossing and up through Bluebell Hill is some of the most uninspiring trail. But it is, and that is partly because the North Downs Way was created out of a bunch of local footpaths that were strung together into a coherent route. It's not designed to be, it was never a start to finish creation from scratch, or an ancient routeway, unlike the Ridgeway or the South Downs Way, which are, ancient tracks that have stood the test of time and people have walked or ridden for years and, centuries. The North Downs Way is just a bunch of local footpaths strung together. And on the most part, they've done a great job, but there are some rough patches.
Yeah.
I just love wandering behind like someone's garden, like compared to like going across Box Hill and just seeing the peak of that and looking out there. I know a lot of people have been up there of races, but that was I shouldn't say this. I didn't recce the course at all, other than to walk up to the top of Box Hill and down again. And I just that was just on the day, the sun, and it's striking. It's
and there's people that come in and go, that's the greatest course I've ever been on. And there's people that are like, I would not run that again if you paid me. And that's fine. And I feel that way about races too. And even within the same area, you can find really different courses. It's each to their own. I'm kind of a bit of I've done 100-mile on every surface you could think of, and it's all good to me. It's all a different challenge, but yes, of our races, the North Downs Way is the hardest, and therefore the dropout rate is pretty high.
Okay, so North Downs Way hardest, Thames Path second.
Yeah, I would say so.
Then South Downs.
The Autumn 100 to me is not only the easiest trail 100 I think possibly in the world. It is generally the best first timers 100, just because you're going out and back to a central point. You've got checkpoints every 10k at least, plus a drop bag every 25 miles.
So it's sort of a lap of honour if you're still in the game.
Runners. Sorry.
So it's still maybe like a lap of honour if you're still in the game at that point.
I mean, don't get me wrong. You're still going to want to really have to finish that race, and it can be really.
And the weather,
right?
The weather last year, that was. I gather that it ended up taking a few people
out.
It
took our mate Gareth out, didn't it? Took Gareth Allen out.
Yeah, he wasn't actually slamming. The funny thing is, everyone thought he was.
Oh,
because he goes to so many. He wasn't. I think he just sort of politely took it on the chin anyway, because he's a brilliant little soldier, isn't he? But that took some people out because the weather was I think the mud was so bad. And it's going to happen, right? It's a trail. If footwear is like the thing that scares me most. I've been so lucky with some races where it's just bone dry. But that's the best thing about the Downs, I think, is they aren't going to get super sticky. Thames Path in places, and the Autumn 100, because it's Thames Path and other bits, I think you could get, like, in a mire, you could really struggle if you don't have the right footwear.
You can. There's also a lot of good running, though, even when it's really muddy. And it's just taking those really muddy stretches easy, because slipping and sliding and working really hard to just keep moving forward, it drains you. And, when you combine it getting colder at night and you slowing down and getting sore and the wind is up, and it's still it could still be a very hard race. That being said, on paper, it's certainly, and on paper, I mean, historical results wise, it is the fastest and highest finish rate of our races.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. I was going to ask you, James, and it's obviously not the 3 weeks of weather warning and watching everyone does in the group on Facebook before the race. What's your favourite thing? Because we picked your brain about what we're interested in, about being Centurion race director. It's a big deal, I'd say, a big deal to people that do it and speak about it. What do you like most about it?
I do get that. I mean, watching people succeed and achieve, particularly those that are either doing it for charity or for a loved one or for a real cause, the emotion that's poured into that and the emotion that pours out at the finish is just incredible. They're definitely the most poignant memories. I don't think I don't know how sustainable organising hundreds is long term, if I'm truly honest. It really takes a toll. I often equate it to running one without the leg pain. You come out of it a zombie, lack of sleep, seriously stressed for most of the time. I still worry about runners from the minute the gun goes until Usually when the last checkpoint closes, I start to just relax a little bit because I think, well, everyone's within 4 or 5 miles of us and they're walking. We should be fine. But, famous last words, I mean, you just want people to be safe, and you can't control that.
People electing to take the Beachy Head route back to Eastbourne on the South Downs. It's
been a while since I heard that one, but that is always
you
a possibility.
specifically warn against it.
Yes,
but I'll lay off texting you for directions during the Thames Path then, James.
Yeah,
because those courses, we should say, are bloody well marked. Like, seriously, I'm one to get lost. I'm one to moan about directions and getting lost and panicking about it. I didn't get lost, and I'd never seen most of the North Downs way in the dark. It is incredibly well marked.
Well, the process on that has been 10 years of refinement. We mark the course about 3 or 4 hours before the leader goes through, and then we double mark the course about an hour before the leader goes through. The leader will then overtake that person and will finish double marking around the mid-pack. So you're getting 2 sets of markers on every mile of that course. And then Drew Sheffield's one of my colleagues. His sole role during the events is to go round, top up the problem areas, the traditional problem areas, and then fill in any gaps that we get reported. The aim is that you should never have to wonder where you are or where the next marking is. Nevertheless, one over-enthusiastic dog walker and 2 miles of markings go down. It's still a trail race. You still need to have your wits about you and follow the national way markers. But on the whole, getting lost is not a major issue at our events. It does happen, but increasingly less and less, especially now where you've got larger races. You're more likely to be in sight of someone before or behind of you, and therefore you're less likely to wander off the route.
Well, I think you've got so many resources on the website. I should point people to that. It was absolutely awesome.
Yes, we try to. Yeah,
little videos and things at the finish. I can't tell you how many times I watched you ride your bike into the Eastbourne. Or to watch someone ride a bike.
Yeah,
I was like, they're running fast into the finish of the South Downs 50 and 100. Yeah, just to make sure, because there's little kinks and diversions and things. But I think you've had practice, let's say, at it now, and everything is sewn up. It's just
you can give people too much information. I'm wary of that, so we try to give everything you need and nothing more. And we're always, someone asks us a question and the answer's not on the website, we strongly consider whether to then add it in or not. And over the years, that means that you covered most things off. It's just length of time. We're a decade in this year, so we should know what we're doing by this point. So
I'm not looking for some big reveal, but you plan to carry on doing it, maybe with, like you're saying, it's a drain, but maybe with the army helping a bit more.
Yes, I don't see us stopping in any time in the near future. Is the short answer to that. I mean,
we've got a few more Grand Slam attempts if this one fails.
Yeah. And it does usually attract people back. I have to say, I'd love to see someone fail and come back and finish. That is even more sweet than the first timer who just gets it right and has a great day. The person who's had a shocker. We've had people miss cut-offs by a second, or Stephen Crawford missed the cut-off at the 96-mile checkpoint of the Autumn 100, so he had 4 miles left in his Grand Slam. And, he was in tears, and it's absolutely devastating. He was there for very early years, and, he was an hour from achieving his goal. And guess what? This year he's coming back to run the Grand Slam. Now, when Stephen finishes his slam, needless to say, that's going to be a pretty momentous occasion, and even better than if he'd done it this year. Last year. So, that's what the sport's about, though, right? It's bloody hard, and that's why we love it, I suppose.
Yeah, and I could tell, and it's like you say, you like seeing people achieve things. Again, sorry, personal story, but I flunked out the South Downs and North Downs 50. Now that's by no means a slam, but they're not easy races. Certainly not for someone like myself, who say is probably not your typical ultra runner. But when I came in, having watched the video of Drew, met Drew at the top of the hill, how chuffed he seemed to be that I was there, and I was like, I'd never met you, mate. Yes. I don't know how you know who I am. And then I don't know, he's probably doing it for everyone and radioing over to you. And I was like, there's James Elson, like at the, like opening to the track saying like, yes, Rob. And that you don't like, it's hard to describe like that. And all the other little side chats you have and your crew has, Nikki and everyone. It really does. Like, it means quite a lot because you lot are like slight celebrities. There's a bit of an awe there.
I know people say that, and I do get why, because, you know, we're the focal point at the events, but when you finish that race, like that is why we do it. You know, yes, of course, we're all trying to pay the bills at the same time. This is a job, at least part of one. But when, you know, we're willing you to finish, that's highly emotionally charged when you get to see someone pushing the cutoff so you think can get home. When we see someone fail who's come so close, it is excruciating. It is the worst part of what we do. And it is living vicariously, really, through runners on the day. You know, it's such an uplifting experience on the whole. You do, of course, get some utterly shit situations to deal with, but that just means the good ones are all the sweeter, I suppose.
Right, I feel like I need to up my game.
Do you know what? I don't think that's a bad thing to sort of come into your 12-week training block thinking, you know, I really need to be motivated for this, and to just have that fire, you know.
Because what we've been talking about and saying, you know, you still need that reason, the same reason and commitment that you had for your first one.
I do.
Like,
I know that I do.
Yeah.
I've walked off courses in the past. I've DNF'd plenty of races, and almost all of them were just lack of motivation. You know, I just wasn't prepared to. Either I'd come in with false expectations, or I just wasn't prepared to go as deep as I needed to go on the day. Only one or two have I really truly been injured or, you know, been unsafe, for example, and stopped myself. The rest of them really have just been lack of motivation. I think that's the biggest thing you need to come in with, is a focus and a desire. That's the most important factor. Yeah. So 12 weeks to go then.
Yeah.
A lot to think about.
Can't wait.
I do feel focused. I was already obsessed, but now I feel focused.
I just feel like I need to up my game.
It is nerve-wracking, it is, and that anxiety doesn't go. And then afterwards, that wave of kind of achievement/relief is almost, you know, I mean, it's such a huge thing. But, you know, there's plenty of people on the journey with you, and you're going to meet some great people out there on the courses that are, as you know, that are just going to make the whole experience, you know, that much better.
Well, sadly, I think we know quite a few of them already.
I've people I would never have met in any other walk of life, including the other runs I do. I've met on that journey back in 2016. I go running with them sometimes. We talk regularly about races. They've got me into other things. It's a mad old world, and I think the Centurion races have been a huge seed and shown me all sorts of different people in a way like myself who just do these amazing things. And at the end of the day, we're not normal, but we are just starting out as ordinary people.
Yeah, totally.
And then you go and do some mad stuff, and it's just the best. Seriously, you said earlier, Jay, it's one of the best feelings in racing. Sad as it is, it's probably some of the best days of my life have been finishing races of yours.
Sure. Yeah,
like
absolutely.
Easy. Never forget it. It's awesome.
I think enjoy the process, you know, because you invest a lot. You know, you ask other people to make sacrifices for you, family, friends, loved ones. You know, one of the things I wrote down before the Arc this year, and I still do this now, I always write down 2 or 3 things for the race, was, you know, just the sacrifice of being away for 4 or 5 days from the kids for, you know, to go and do something which is purely selfish. Make the most of it. Don't go there and sort of think halfway through, bloody hell, this is a bit unfair on everybody else. You know, at that point, it's a selfish sport. You've really got to want to do it for yourself and find reasons for yourself, because ultimately the people at home only really care that you come home safely. They don't really give a toss how you did. They just want you home in one piece.
Yeah, we know full well.
Get hung up on, you know, expectation from X, Y, and Z. And it's like just run for yourself and make the race about yourself, and make sure you make good decisions on sacrifices that others made for you to be there. And that sometimes the volunteers are the biggest impetus on people finishing, because the runners see these people standing in the field at 4 a.m. that have been there for 15 hours, and they're thinking, bloody hell, if they're doing this, the least I can do is get myself to the finish. So yeah,
Definitely.
all in. It's a good experience, hopefully, and a big year. Yeah.
We're all in, aren't we, Si?
So what else?
All in.
What else are you two running then this year apart from the Slam?
So you're gonna have a go at us. I mean,
no. Listen, it's each to their own. I'm only giving my sort of advice from having watched people over the years. I've seen people run 50 hundreds in a year before.
Wow.
You know, so there's every level of the spectrum.
So
don't tell him, Simon, he's tricking us.
Nah. Yeah. Well, you know what we're like. We're 100 clubbers, so we're just flipping marathon junkies mainly. I mean, I'm doing a 10 in 10 with Phoenix now. You know they're all offering up 20 in 20 this year and all that sort of nonsense.
And so's Travis at SBN.
Yeah,
fairness.
Okay. Of course,
20 and 20 of anything you want. Now, I haven't been pulled into that.
Neither have I.
I decided not to do the 10 in 10 because I did it last year. And why would you want to do that again? 10 marathons in 10 days. Sounds brilliant. It was. Not again, thanks.
Well, I preferred. I think I enjoyed 10 in 10. I found that a holiday. The 100 miler, I find an exam.
I get that.
It's a lot more intense.
I can understand that. Yeah.
And I think so. My preference would always be the multi-dayers rather than those big long ultras.
I'm the total opposite. I want to do it. And
yes,
then,
I am.
Sit on the sofa for a week.
There's plenty of people who are in both camps. Again, that's where this umbrella term ultra running is really strange. Because technically, 10 marathons in 10 days isn't an ultra, but in my eyes, that's at least as difficult as most of the ultras out there. Just getting up every day and being there and fit and healthy enough to start and finish is a massive task.
Yeah. I mean, I must admit, I'm a bit nervous of how close it is to Thames Path. So I think it's I won't ask.
Don't tell me.
No, James, don't worry. It starts the first week of April.
Okay.
So I mean,
Is it okay though?
Run right, run economically. If you go out there and absolutely bury yourself and you're still recovering on the Thames Path start line, then the second half might be a bit more difficult than you'd planned.
Yeah,
but
sure.
You guys are, different to. Most of the people on the start line will not have the depth of experience that you guys have. Not necessarily in running hundreds, but just running lots of events and lots of miles over lots of years. A lot of them are still very new to running. Yeah. And you've got that aerobic endurance, that base that you can lean on and use almost at will. So I know Rob, you'll be the first to say, you're not an athlete and not really a runner and everything else, but you ran the North Downs Way 100 in 28 and change. There's not many people out there who've bettered that, right? So,
I appreciate that. But all that said about the aerobic endurance, Simon, I'm looking so forward
James,
to seeing you bury yourself in the Thames Path.
No, because I've got another one.
I'll see you in Henley, mate. That's where I'm.
Yeah, I've got another one for you, James. So my plan for the Slam is sub 24.
Mm-hmm.
Bonkers, or again, just...
No, absolutely not. For a runner of your kind of speed and experience, it's absolutely not bonkers. You just need to be sensible. Pace for that from the start.
Yeah.
If you think of that as, 14-minute 40 miling, there's no way you're going to be going that slow early on. So immediately you're building a bank, even if you're running extremely economically. Just be efficient in the checkpoints. A runner of your, caliber will be easily capable of bringing that home. The only one that will be a challenge for, against the average times could be the North Downs 100. But even then, you won't struggle. And use the experience of the Thames Path and South Downs Way. Refine your pacing and your eating in those two, and come into North Downs with a bit of a more, refined plan. You're absolutely capable of achieving that. Yeah.
Nice. So easy peasy.
There we go. See, now I'm not worried again. I can sit back again.
Get a bottle of Plonk out.
You
earned it.
Yeah, I mean, you're still going to have to want it every step of the way, clearly.
Yeah, that's
but,
the problem.
I think it's good to have targets that are realistic. If it is meeting the cut-off, that's fine. If it's running sub 24, that's fine. The one caveat I would say to that, if it's the Slam or running a 25-hour North Downs 100, don't overdo it.
Yeah.
Miles 40 to 80 in the North Downs 100 and lose it all because of that. That one extra one-day buckle. Ultimately, the achievement of the Slam will be the main thing, for sure.
Okay. And since you've asked, James, the thing I'm doing, and it's, open to judgment, but as part of my training, just to get better at 100 milers at the same time as doing them. Like the slam is the A races, but I'm doing, a mix of LDWA, some more generously timed, and some of the lower key like Phoenix SVN 50 milers, and I've bet Simon I'll do 12 in 12 months, 50 plus milers, whether that's 24-hour events, which I would take mega easy just to get the miles logged, and I've spaced them out, I think, optimally in and around and before the Grand Slam to get miles in my legs.
Let me be honest, I think you two have been far more sensible than I was imagining you're going to tell me. I thought I was expecting far more.
We can go more. Yeah, we can go more. Can we?
No, don't tell me anymore, please.
No, that
I like
sounds that.
Good. Listen, I think that's okay. Again, I sound a bit like a broken record, but just don't smash yourself on any of those other interim races. Save it for the slam. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, any sort of 6-hour challenge events that I'm doing, I'm trying to stay out there for the 6 hours.
Yeah.
So like I did that today. Covered around 40 miles.
Yep.
And that will be my plan, I guess, for the next 10, 12 weeks. If I am at one of those, I will try and stay out.
I think that's good. If you can get some practice working on what you're eating and drinking during 100. Again, in a 6-hour race, you can, as we know, get by largely on fumes and coke, or just the odd gel. But in 100, then the second half is going to be a miserable affair if you haven't started eating from hour one. So. Yeah, I think that's fine, and I've done the same myself as we discussed. For October, November last year, I did exactly the same thing. I think I ran 5 or 6 of them, and I thought they were excellent for training. I'm also, one to walk off if I think I'm just overdoing it a little bit on the day. I've come there for a reason, and I've got a goal in mind, and that goal mainly is how I want to feel at the end and what I wanted to sort of go away from it with, being able to train the next day or a couple of days later rather than the next week. So I think it's sustainable, especially, again, for someone with the number of races you've got under your belt. Yeah.
That's good. That's good to hear.
Excellent. I'll call it being called sensible by you, James. That's brilliant. Taking that to the bank.
It's a long time since we've been called like normal and sensible and stuff, and that's all perfectly fine. That's good. That's good news.
Excellent.
I think respect for the distance.
Yeah, definitely. That's the biggest thing.
I can tell that. So
Awesome. Well, James, thanks ever so much for coming on.
It's been brilliant. I sort of don't ever want it to end.
No,
but we'll have to haul you back at some point to assess our performance on one of said races.
Oh, I'd love to, and obviously you guys have not exactly kept it quiet that you're embarking on these journeys. So now you've really got to do it justice, because
this is it. Yeah, this was the whole idea, wasn't it, Rob? Just accountability. Yeah.
Right. There won't be any phone calls at Raysbury. I promise you that.
Oh, please! If you're having a bad one at 22 miles into the first race, then the words down the phone line might not be so kind.
Don't be kind. Give me the look. But we'll get it done. Yeah. Cheers, James. Been brilliant.
Pleasure, guys.
Excellent.
Thanks so much.
Cheers. Bye.
All right. See you, mate.
We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Cheers.